Have you ever felt like you're not as flexible, not as full of energy as you used to be, or maybe you find yourself wondering how you can live a longer life while staying healthy and sharp? If the answer is yes, then it might be time to uncover a secret that modern science is finally bringing to light. I'm talking about fasting the right way. This isn't about starving yourself or punishing your body. It's a powerful longevity strategy, backed by science. Professor David Sinclair, a leading aging researcher at Harvard Medical School, shared something that seems simple, but could completely change the way you think about your age and your health. He said if he had to choose just one single thing to improve longevity, it would be this: eat fewer meals. Eat fewer meals. That sounds like it goes against everything we've ever been taught, right? Since we were kids, we were told to eat 3 square meals a day, maybe even with snacks in between. But now, a wave of research, from the lab to real life, is proving the exact opposite. Spacing out your meals and giving your body a real break from eating is one of nature's most powerful anti-aging medicines. According to Professor Sinclair, intermittent fasting, which means eating within a specific window of time each day, or fasting for a couple of days a week, doesn't just help with weight loss. It awakens powerful defense mechanisms inside your body. When your body is in a state of mild hunger, it starts to activate what are called longevity genes. It begins to clean out old cells, repair damaged DNA, and even reverse some of the visible signs of aging. He shared his own story, saying, "I used to be overweight and sluggish, but when I adopted the habit of eating one large meal in the evening, my body went through a remarkable transformation. I didn't just lose weight. My mind became clearer than ever before." But fasting isn't just about skipping a meal. The magic doesn't come from eating less, but from the period of not eating. That's when your body switches into a defensive mode of self-renewal and repair. In his years of research on everything from yeast and mice to humans, Professor Sinclair and his colleagues discovered that almost all species, from bacteria to dogs, live longer if they either reduce their calorie intake or how often they eat. And this isn't just true in a lab. Many religious communities, like the Jains in India, Orthodox Christians, or those who practice Ramadan, have a habit of periodic fasting, and they have a significantly higher rate of living healthily past the age of 70. One remarkable study from Baylor University showed that after just 4 weeks of fasting from sunrise to sunset, participants' blood pressure, BMI, and waist circumference all dropped significantly. Most importantly, the proteins responsible for DNA repair, a key factor in your biological age, increased dramatically. But here's the most important part: you don't need to be an expert or buy expensive supplements. Just by changing when you eat, without spending a single extra dollar, you've already started your journey to a longer life. So, what's actually happening inside your body when you fast? When you don't eat for several hours, your body stops relying on glucose from food and starts generating energy from your fat stores. At this point, 3 critical defense systems are activated. They are called the sirtuins, mTOR, and AMPK. These 3 mechanisms help repair cells, recycle old proteins, and produce new mitochondria, the power plants of your cells. This is the very foundation of a long, healthy life. But you might be thinking, fasting is hard. I get so hungry my hands start to shake. Professor Sinclair understands. He failed many times when he first tried to skip meals. So what's his secret drink? Plenty of water, hot tea, or black coffee. It helps curb the hunger. And if you're really struggling, a small handful of nuts or a little yogurt is enough to get you through. The key is not to give up after those first few difficult days. He says that after 2 to 3 weeks, your body learns to produce its own glucose from the liver in a process called gluconeogenesis. And from that point on, the feeling of hunger dramatically decreases. "I've never been more focused and clear-headed," he says. One tool he recommends is a continuous glucose monitor. It helps you see exactly which foods cause your blood sugar to spike. For example, he discovered that grapes and white rice sent his sugar levels soaring, but potatoes were surprisingly okay for his body. And to start fasting effectively, you don't have to immediately jump to skipping 2 meals. You can start by simply skipping breakfast and having tea instead. After a few weeks, once your body adapts, you can extend your fasting window or shift to making dinner your main meal of the day. It's definitely not easy, he admits, but it's absolutely worth it. Okay, so now we understand why fasting can help us live longer. It's not just about weight loss. It's about activating our body's own system for self-cleaning, repair, and protection. Once you get used to eating fewer meals, maybe one big meal in the evening or eating within a set window, the next question is just as important. What should we actually eat during that window? Because fasting is only half the story. The other half is choosing the right foods to support this process of renewal. Professor Sinclair shares something very simple that many of us overlook. The very first thing you need to reduce, or even eliminate, is sugar. Not meat, not carbs, but refined sugar. The thing that's sweet on the tongue but so harsh on our cells. You see, when we consume sugar, especially glucose and fructose, it doesn't just cause weight gain. It paralyzes our cellular defense mechanisms. Those longevity genes, like the sirtuins, get switched off when your blood sugar is constantly high. And even worse, sugar creates molecules called ages-advanced glycation, end products which cause the proteins in your body to get clumped and sticky, like taffy. The result, sagging skin, hardened arteries, and brain fog. That's why keeping your blood sugar stable throughout the day, especially when you're only eating one meal, is so crucial. And you can do this by cutting out sugar and limiting fast-acting carbs like white bread, white rice, sodas, and fruit juices. But that doesn't mean you have to cut out all sweetness. Professor Sinclair still drinks tea with a little bit of natural stevia, a sweetener that doesn't raise insulin, and sometimes he'll cheat with a small spoonful of ice cream after dinner. As long as you don't let the whole pint slide down every night. I'm human, not a robot, he says with a laugh. Now, if sugar is the enemy, then protein, especially from red meat, is a more controversial topic. A lot of people believe that eating more meat, especially beef and pork, helps build muscle and maintain strength. And that's true, but only in the short term. When we talk about longevity, the story changes. Professor Sinclair explains that red meat is high in branched-chain amino acids like leucine and valine. These amino acids flip a molecular switch called mTOR, which tells your body, "We've got plenty of protein, it's time to grow." When mTOR is highly active, your body focuses on building tissue and muscle. But at the same time, it shuts down the self-cleaning process known as autophagy, which is essential for refreshing our cells. If you are constantly full, constantly supplying your body with meat, it never gets the signal to switch into that renewal mode. Old, damaged cells just keep accumulating. Over time, this can lead to chronic diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and even cancer. So, if your goal is to live a long and healthy life, consider gradually shifting to a diet with less meat and more plants. This doesn't mean you have to give up meat entirely. You can still have fish or a little high-quality red meat on the weekend. But instead of making meat the centerpiece of your plate, let vegetables, beans, nuts, and mushrooms become the stars of the show. A 2013 study found that people on a semi-vegetarian diet had an 8% lower risk of death compared to meat eaters. Full vegetarians had a 15% lower risk, and pescatarians who eat fish but not red meat had a 19% lower risk of death. Those are numbers worth thinking about. Professor Sinclair is currently experimenting with a fully vegetarian diet himself. Before this, he followed the Okinawan diet, famous for having one of the highest percentages of centenarians in the world. It's based on rice, green vegetables, soybeans, seaweed, and small fish. All simple, easy to digest, and full of cell-protecting compounds. The key is consistency over the long term, because the benefits only come if you stick with it. And he stresses it's not just about eating plants, but eating the right kind of plants. This is where the concept of xenohormesis comes in, a fascinating idea proposed by his own team. Simply put, when plants are under stress from drought, pests, or harsh conditions, they release defensive molecules like resveratrol, quercetin, and fisetin, which also happen to be great for humans. We have evolved to recognize these warning signals from plants. When we eat vegetables rich in these compounds, like red grapes, red onions, or cabbage, our body interprets it as a sign that the environment is tough, and it needs to turn on its own survival mode, and that activates our powerful repair systems. So, if you can, choose organic vegetables grown naturally outdoors instead of the big, shiny, fast-growing ones from a greenhouse. The uglier the produce, the more nutritious it often is. And of course, there's one more food group you can't forget: healthy fats from plants. Olive oil, avocados, chia seeds, and almonds aren't just a source of healthy fats. They also help you absorb fat-soluble vitamins and activate those sirtuin longevity genes. So, to recap, once you've mastered fasting, make sure your meals aren't undermining your efforts. Avoid sugar, reduce red meat, and prioritize whole, colorful plant foods and healthy fats. If you can, eat a Mediterranean-style diet, lots of vegetables, beans, fish, and olive oil, which has been proven to reduce the risk of death by 31% if adopted before the age of 80. And one more little tip from Professor Sinclair: eat dessert last. Never eat sugar on an empty stomach. When you end your meal with a little fruit or a small sweet treat, the sugar won't cause the same dramatic insulin spike as it would if you ate it when you were hungry. So now you have the formula: eat fewer meals and eat smart. But there's still one more crucial element on this journey to a long life that has nothing to do with food. It's about movement and the positive shocks our bodies need to stay young. Can exercise, cold exposure, or high heat have the same anti-aging effect as fasting? When we talk about longevity, most people think about nutrition, supplements, or diet plans. But there's an equally important factor that, according to Professor David Sinclair, determines the long-term youthfulness of our cells. It's the positive stress signals our bodies need to be exposed to regularly. We usually think of stress as a bad thing, but in biology, there's a fascinating concept called hormesis. The idea is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And our bodies, strangely enough, thrive under conditions of moderate challenge. A little bit of hunger, a little bit of cold, a little bit of intense exercise, they all activate the protective genes that fight against aging. Think of your body as having a full-time repair crew. When you fast, they get called to work. When you exercise, they get deployed with even more urgency. And when you step into a cold or hot environment or push through a tough workout, they upgrade the entire system. Professor Sinclair explains that alongside fasting and a plant-rich diet, these positive biological shocks like high-intensity exercise, cold plunges, and hot saunas all share a common goal: activating those three groups of longevity genes: sirtuins, AMPK, and mTOR. These are the molecular switches that help the body recover, fight inflammation, and stay younger for longer. One of the best examples is HIIT, or high-intensity interval training. That means short bursts of intense effort, like sprinting for 30 seconds, followed by walking slowly for a minute. Workouts like this don't just burn fat, they powerfully activate the AMPK gene. This, in turn, increases the number of mitochondria, those energy factories in your cells, and gives you more endurance, no matter your age. And if you can't do intense exercise, that's okay. Professor Sinclair encourages a brisk 30-minute walk every day. taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Gentle but consistent exercise also has significant benefits. And then there's a strategy he calls the cold therapy, basically, taking cold showers. It might sound harsh, but recent studies show that when you expose your body to cold water or low temperatures, it triggers a process called thermogenesis, which activates brown fat. This is a special type of fat that burns calories to maintain your body temperature. It also increases insulin sensitivity and improves your metabolism. Studies on mice even showed that regular cold exposure helped them live longer and suffer from fewer chronic inflammatory diseases. On the flip side, high temperatures, like from a sauna, are just as effective. A long-term study in Finland found that people who used a sauna 4 to 7 times a week had a 50% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those who didn't. The reason high heat dilates blood vessels, increases circulation, and activates heat shock proteins, a group of molecules that help cells recover from damage and get rid of faulty proteins. Don't hesitate to try a sauna or simply alternate between hot and cold water in the shower. Professor Sinclair suggests, your future self might thank you for the challenge. In short, the very things we thought were stressful hunger, cold, heat, and intense exercise are actually the signals that tell our body to activate its repair and anti-aging mechanisms. And that explains why the world's longest-lived communities, from the Okinawans and people in the Mediterranean to tribes in the high mountains, always live in imperfect conditions but have extraordinary health. They perform manual labor, walk for miles every day, eat simple diets, and endure the cold. And that is the ideal lifestyle for longevity. The truth is, a long life doesn't come from a magic pill. It comes from simple habits, repeated day after day. So if you want to start today, remember this. Start by eating fewer meals, but make sure they're packed with nutrients. Cut out sugar and fast-acting carbs. Prioritize colorful vegetables and plant-based foods. Reduce red meat and replace it with fish, beans, and nuts. Move your body every single day. Whether it's walking, climbing stairs, or a few minutes of jumping jacks, give your body a little bit of cold and a little bit of heat to stimulate its self-protection mechanisms. And most importantly, be patient, because small changes, when maintained long enough, create massive results. Professor Sinclair concludes that your body doesn't ask for much. It just needs you to give it the right conditions to heal, regenerate, and rejuvenate itself. And most of these things don't cost any money. You just need to adjust your lifestyle. So, listen to your body. Give it periods of rest through sensible fasting. Give it clean fuel with real food. And give it small challenges every day through movement, temperature, and a little bit of self-love. Hey everyone, if you found this video helpful, please leave a comment about your experience with intermittent fasting or any healthy lifestyle habits you're practicing. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our next deep dive. Here's to living a happy, healthy, and long life at every age.